Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the No Laying Up podcast. Soly here. Got my guy with me on a Monday evening, Mr. TC. Hello, TC.
Hey, Soly. God, cooked a banger of a dinner tonight with my man Goosey, my sous chef Goosey. Little tomato tartare over a nice strip steak. It was a perfect way to end the Labor Day weekend.
Nice long weekend. Quick run of show for you here tonight. We're going to break down. Europe has made their Ryder Cup picks. That's going to take up the first segment of this show. We actually recorded a lengthy conversation. DJ Pye joined us late last week to talk about. We've been kind of punting on the Brian Rolapp PGA Tour transition stuff. We just brain dumped everything we could think of for over an hour that you're going to hear kind of a little bit long later in the show. Around the world in golf, Tristan Lawrence wins the Omega European Masters. Miranda Wang wins the FM Championship. Mike McCoy wins the U.S. Senior Amateur. But before we dive in, I want to talk about Titleist's new T-Series irons lineup, specifically Titleist, their fitting philosophy of the 3Ds: distance control, dispersion, and angle of descent. The job of a Titleist fitter is to optimize those three parameters for you, giving you the tools to hit consistent and predictable yardages, tighten your dispersion patterns, and reach a high enough peak height to stop your ball on the green easier. And just as a spoiler, the vast majority of players hit the ball too low and could gain a lot with a steeper descent angle. And they got a whole new the what's it called, the T250 launch spec. Launch spec.
Oh yeah, the launch spec. Yeah, those
That
go very, very high.
It's a very unique iron. It is not a good fit for me, but it might be a good fit for you. That's why you should go see a fitter. The Titleist new T-Series irons are designed with those priorities in mind, launching the ball up in the air and delivering tons of consistency off the face. We've mentioned before how blendable they are. That's a huge point of emphasis for the Titleist team. Most golfers reach a break point in their set where they need a bigger chassis and a little more help, whether you're blending between a T100, T150, T250, T350, or even a U505 long iron, which DJ's freaking out about. They all have a clean, uniform look. It makes it easy to take the performance gains of the mixed set without wrestling with a big change in your profile or a feel in the middle of your bag. I go from T150 5 iron to T200, excuse me, a T250 4 iron. I don't even notice the look. Like it looks like the same set of clubs. So
Soly, I was begging them. First of all, I think the turf interaction's a lot better on these. I think just everything. I'm like, this is my favorite set of irons I've ever owned, and it's not particularly close even. And you can go back and check the tape. I don't think I said that about my previous T150s. They were good, but like these are great. I go from 4 through 7 in the 250s, and then I go 150 in 8 and 9, and then I go to my Vokey 44 degree pitching wedge.
A wild blended set. We haven't played. We got to get out and play some golf.
It's so sick. Yeah, and I'm just like blown away at how much higher the 4 and 5 iron go. It's incredible.
You can go to Titleist.com to find a fitting near you and experience the performance that has made Titleist the most played iron on the PGA Tour for 12 seasons in a row. This episode also brought to you by our friends at Whoop, the official fitness wearable of the PGA and LPGA Tour. The all-new Whoop is here. It's the only wearable that turns your health and fitness data into personalized guidance. It's 7% smaller, 14 days of battery life. It's incredible. You don't even have to think about charging this thing anymore. It's got powerful new features like Health Span. It shows you how your daily habits impact your pace of aging. It was not going very well for your boy for a little while there, TC. Can report a no red August. I had 19 green days and 12 yellow days, no red August. That was some conscious decisions I made to make sure my body is recovering. And you can get a ton of personalized insight like that if you go to join.whoop.com/NLU to get a free month on us. Start optimizing your life on and off the golf course. I feel so much better just making a fefew life changes, and that's been reflected in the Whoop. So thank you to that. So,
love that. Any secrets you want to share, Soly?
I mean, a little less alcohol, I have a little nighttime, little beverage I drink. I'm not going to give a free ad away here that helps me sleep really well. I'm just going to bed earlier. Like, it's not that complicated. It's really not. So Europe has made their picks, TC. Your squad is complete. The automatic qualifiers for Europe were Rory McIlroy, Justin Rose, Tyrrell Hatton, Tommy Fleetwood, Robert McIntyre, and Rasmus Højgaard. The captain selections: John Rahm, 6-3-3 in his Ryder Cup career. Sepp Straka, 1-2. Victor Hovland, 3-4-3. Ludwig Åberg, 2-2. Matt Fitzpatrick, 1-7. Shane Lowry, 2-3-1. 4 of the 6 captain selections have losing records in the Ryder Cup, but it does not matter, TC. It does not, because the boys club is back here. 11 of the 12 players returning to the Ryder Cup, and the 12th is just a replacement twin for the other Højgaard. What's your reaction?
I don't think I recall you reading out the records and CVs of all the.
We can do that for we were just in shock on the U.S. side, I think earlier this week, but I'm happy to read those off if you like me to.
Well, I think, I'm not sure when continuity and experience off of a winning team turned into a bad thing, especially one with as good of a camaraderie and joie de vivre as this team.
You didn't do that with Rome, even though it was way less continuity with that? You didn't do the boys club thing back then? No one
Well,
did
I
the
mean,
boys?
it's the same captain even now too, so it's not
Oh,
like you're
okay, that's the
starting from
difference. Okay.
scratch.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
and this is
Okay.
a competent captain and all of that. So yeah, no, I don't know. I'm all for it. I think it's stock, but it's very it's very much like if it's not broke, don't fix it. I don't think Matt Wallace had a shot at getting on as well as he's played. I think he's played quite well. Harry Hall, hope to see him at Adair Manor. Marco Peng, the up and comer there. I hope to see both the Højgaard brothers, all sorts of other Danes, Rasmus Njergaard Peterson, and then really I just I'd like to see Christopher Reitan and some of the young Spaniards as well at Adair. I think this will be kind of the last ride for some of these guys on the European team, but overall I'm stoked, man. I think it's going to be a really, really, just a lot of continuity there. I know Sepp hasn't played well lately. Think he's got some stuff going on the home front, and I imagine he'll be ready to rock if they picked him. So, just poorly timed with BMW and Tour Championship, and I think he'll be back in action. I mean, Soly, I'll ask you. I think for Napa, the early commit
Oh, here we go.
list, Xander's not even
It.
committed yet to
Yeah,
Napa.
it's
Is that
the
concerning at
anniversary
all?
of it's the 2-year anniversary of Cantlay's bachelor party. Like you expect him to,
Okay.
be there and playing golf? No, absolutely. I don't know what the story is there. I
And
imagine
they all
there's some
just
story.
seem so happy to be there on the Zoom call.
Oh, I know that. See, that's Europe's already won up. TC, I read all
Yeah,
about it on social media.
yeah.
I went back and because Europe does all the Europe fans do this every year, just about how much they win the Ryder Cup before an event. I went back and found a bunch of stuff from Whistling Straits. And listen, let's not get all too swept up in just because they're smiling on the Zoom doesn't mean they're going to roll into Bethpage and wipe the floor with everyone. But
I
Europe's
never
won
said they're
up.
gonna wipe
We
the
know that.
floor with anybody. I just said I feel very, very comfortable and at ease with where we are right now. Humble and hungry, Solly.
I think so. I'm obviously being facetious with the boys club stuff. I think we've talked a lot about how you put it. I'm more of holding up a mirror for a lot of the narratives that have been applied on the U.S. side, not necessarily just you, but just to people in general, and that
You
do not seem to
people.
carry those over on the European side. Like it is a, I mean, you went way off the board on recent play to take Shane Lowry and to not take Harry Hall. Like that's a decision. Like we won't know how that plays out until the end.
Yeah.
Like that's not. You do not have to print off the strokes gained list, as I've said, to fill out the team. Like you want to pick the guys you think are going to give you the best chance to win, and they think that is Shane Lowry. That one is open to criticism if it does not work out well. I think he has just been penciled in relatively strongly, and I'm just not positive the resume backs it up. I mean, it's one thing to say, yeah, he has not been in good form, but he's got a great Ryder Cup record. That hasn't really been the case
I
with
think
Shane.
you're ignoring a lot of context with the Ryder Cup record. Like he was paired up with a dead corpse and Rory the one year. He ground out a really good tie. Like he's been a good Ryder Cup player. You can't just say 2-2 and
He's 2-3, I think it was, and I mean he was like middle of the pack in Rome on home soil. He was not strong, at Whistling Straits.
listen. That would have
It's
been
hard to
my
say.
first guy off or my last guy on the team. Personally, I would have loved to see Noren. I think Noren would be a great Ryder Cupper personally, but I also, I trust them seeing what they're seeing. I think if you do want to make a boys club accusation, I don't think Fitz, Tommy, Ludwig, any of them fit that. But I do think like Lowry probably is the one exception to that. Of they're giving a lot of credence to locker room juice and familiarity with other guys and just the intangibles that he brings to the team. So
Yeah, and
I'll give you that one solid.
I really don't have a problem with that. I think especially, I mean, Fitz, very poor Ryder Cup record, but like has played. He's been one of the best European players over the
Yeah.
entire summer. Like he rounded into form. The golf course profile should not be an issue with his kind of longer. He's not a bomber now, but he's no longer a short knocker, which would have been something that worked against him. Kind of going up into this if he was a question mark, but I think things fell into place very, very easily. And I can honestly see the case against not taking Harry Hall. Like he is a strokes gain darling, but it's almost entirely with short game. And as we covered last week on the United States side of it, like this is the match play parts get decided. I know people think it gets decided on the green. If you remember, my stat from Wednesday was Europe cleared the U.S. by 19 and a half shots in Rome, and 17 of them were from ball striking. Right, so if he's stuffing the stat sheet on the putting green, that might not necessarily be the best fit if he's not a great ball striker. Come to Rome and on a longer golf course. So I can see why you do it. I do, but I do enjoy having fun with you on some of these. And don't think I won't be, tooting that one just like crazy. If the U.S. goes up 6-2 with Harry Hall sitting at home, I mean, that'd have been the difference maker right there.
A week on, how do you feel about your squad?
I feel really good about the captain's picks. My gun shy nature was I felt really good about the captain's picks in 2023. I felt really good about them for the last 4 years, like 4 goes around, and it's worked out well in one of those last 3. So it is a when you put the whole team all together, you remember like, okay, JJ Spawn, automatic qualifier. Okay. Like he could be really good, but okay, that's one thing. Harris English, a couple really good events this year, but it wasn't like the strongest year, from
Starting to
beginning to
talk
end.
yourself out of it. I
Oh
like
yeah,
it.
I'm not going into this one wildly cocky like I have with some of the previous ones. Okay, I think the U.S. still should win. I think we got a clearer picture of what Keegan is like as a captain, and I liked that answer, more than I did come Wednesday morning when I woke up, because I kind of thought they were really, really bagging this thing, and maybe they still are, but I was left with a little more hope of like, no, okay, he hasn't, he decided a while ago he wasn't going to pick himself. He was just totally toying with the media. I don't know what you gained by that. That still seems kind of silly to me, but
I still don't buy that either.
That's also fair. It might not have been a true true representation of how things have gone. But what are you anticipating on the pairing front with what we're seeing out of Europe? I mean, it's the same squad back. It's a different golf course, right? I would think Eduardo Molinari, if he was sitting here with us right now, would say we're going to run the simulations. We're going to take Rory's driving and we're going to lay it next to so-and-so's iron play and see what that gives us on strokes gain. That might give us a different answer at Bethpage, or it might be the same pairings. What do you, if you had to pick the opening 8 guys that are going out in foursomes in that first session, putting you on the spot with this one, what would you predict?
Oh man, I don't even like foursomes or 4-ball. I think I'd like to see some different combos, whether that's like a Hovland and Lowry together, or Ludwig. I think Ludwig and Tommy played together once last time. I'd love to see Ludwig and Tommy together, just kind of thunder and lightning there. By the way, did you realize Tommy shot in the 60s all 12 rounds in the playoffs?
It's pretty absurd.
And it was Scotty's 14th straight top 8 finish. I just had to get those 2 things out. That's been rattling around in my brain for the last week. But
of course, Data Golf's got a great new tool, player history tool. Ludwig played all 3 sessions with Victor Hovland, and they went 2-1, 2-0 in foursomes. So I would think that's probably a likely foursomes pairing. And then does that put Tommy and Rory together out in a session as well for foursomes?
Yeah, I think I'm curious to see Rasmus. I think it's cool that Rasmus was driving a cart around last time, cheering on his twin brother, and this time he's in the mix, and his brother's in that. Like that hunger and that enthusiasm, and seeing it from the outside in and being that close to it, I think is a really cool thing. Very curious to see what they do with Fitz. I think Fitz is a much different player, even than I would say, 2023. I feel like he's improved. He kind of had that downturn there for a year and a half or so, and he seems to be really, he fought his way back over the last 4 or 6 months. Yeah, I mean, pairings wise, like it's just I don't know. It's too early for me to say. It's I think Sep's pretty malleable. I think Sep would be good with, I mean, he drives it pretty straight and he's very good iron player, great putter. I would say he's pretty malleable. Like you've got some chess pieces. Like I feel like Lowry would probably be pretty good with just about anybody. Also, Lowry may only play 2 or 3 rounds.
So Lowry and Sep played both foursome sessions last time around. So the teams went. I think I'm just looking this up on the spot, but I think it went exactly. They had the same groupings for foursomes last time, which was Rahm and Hatton together, Rory and Tommy together, and Ludwig and Hovland together, and then also Lowry and Sep together in both foursome sessions. I would guess the first 3 of those is most certainly what we're going to see. Not most certainly, I don't know, but that would be my guess for that. But I would be surprised if Lowry and Sep were paired together on a long golf course like Bethpage. I would think, I don't know which one of those 2, but I think you're probably only taking one of those guys. And I don't know if it's a Rasmus situation or probably putting a longer hitter if you're playing one of those 2 would be my guess as of right now.
I think Rasmus to me feels like a great, like I wish we had Rasmus and Nikolai personally. I feel like they'd both be really good fits for this golf course and just, a couple good dice rolls. Overall, I mean, I don't know. I just think Tommy's a better player than he's ever been. We'll see which Rory shows up based on his proclamations at the end of the last Ryder Cup. I can't imagine he'll show up at all unprepared.
Which, if we're being honest, that was just a kind of a meh second half of the year for Rory,
Totally.
right? He's not looking like an unbeatable guy, but and Rory's just been around so many Ryder Cups now to this point. I mean, he's had some stinkers. He's had some major clunkers in Ryder Cups. And he's had some obviously massively triumphant moments in there. And it is just kind of, I'd be surprised if he showed up and gave us a clunker again, especially with how the comments he made after the last one. But we saw it at Whistling Straits, but he's a different player than Whistling Straits also.
I think this is a massive bucket list thing for him.
Yeah.
It seems like that's the kind of thing that gets him up, right? Like, I mean, even certain majors this year, he didn't really show up fully engaged, but he said, like, I think one of the most important or, impressive things in all of sports right now is to win an away Ryder Cup. And I totally agree. And I imagine he wanted to get out of the playoffs, like BMW Tour Championship, all of that, pack it up, go rest up for a little bit, and then get into, grind mode for, a good 2 or 3 weeks here in the lead up. So, I mean, we'll see all the Europeans at BMW PGA at Wentworth, with the exception of are Hatton and Rahm in the field there?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Because I feel like Hatton's played really good golf this year. I don't think he's a concern. If anything, I think Rahm might be a little bit of a wild card. He's played better than he had, than he did, I think, beginning of the year, but he just seems like he's not getting the dubs and still an above average player, but I don't know by quite the same margin.
They are listed in the field on the
good.
Both Hatton and Rahm.
I don't think Sep is listed in the field right now, but I'm sure he'll turn up in Napa or he'll get himself ready. So
this is a different ask though I know that's, BMW, it's a massive event on the DP World Tour calendar, but it's a different ask this go around to ask players to go to Europe and then come back to the States, right? It was a very easy ask after the Tour Championship and everything to have them come over and play a fair amount in Europe leading up to the Ryder Cup in Italy. So it proved to be a very good tune-up, and they obviously came in very sharp and came right off the bus and started playing great as of Friday morning. But not that these guys are not used to traveling like that. It is just kind of a different. I don't think it's necessarily the massive advantage to have the European events in between Tour Championship and this that it was in 2023.
Agree. Yeah.
Matt Wallace breaking down in tears. I don't know. I know we're not always spot on with projecting who's going to be on this team, but I don't think we talk about that guy making the team at all this year.
And he's played really good golf.
He's been totally fine.
I don't know. Matt Wallace is one of those guys where I really want to like Matt Wallace. He seems like he cares deeply and he works his ass off and everything. But yeah, it just seems like that's not a substitute for all right, like you didn't earn your way on the team. You
I
know,
mean, yeah, again, this is not the end all be all, like strokes gained, all that stuff. But you got to get, if you want to like beat down the door, you got to play like to a certain level to get
yeah.
somebody's attention. And like, I mean, Thomas Peters, have we even mentioned that guy's name? He has
But
played better golf than Matt
you
Wells,
gotta
Sammy
win.
Valimaki, Victor Perez, like there's just a ton of guys that you take even above him as far as playing good golf on top of not being liked by a lot of the other guys. I mean, I don't
Even
know.
if he won at Cron, I still don't think
No,
he's on the team. You
no,
know?
no, 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 no. That does not
So,
change anything. He finished second, but like winning
right.
it would not change the picture at all. So that was a little bit curious,
Yeah.
curious reaction. But anything else on the Ryder Cup front?
Not really. I think just, I almost have to go into like, you know, slow my roll a little bit. I need to marinate a little bit for the Ryder Cup. Just, I'm stoked to see Hatton against the New York fans, but I also, as we've said a little bit, like I don't know if it's gonna be all that many New York fans,
It's gonna be a
right?
big corporate retreat, I think, which honestly it might be good for everybody. Like I don't know if we needed to have the full on New York experience. I will say I caught a little bit of NBC is debuting a docu series covering the Ryder Cup. I believe it starts this coming Sunday. As you're listening to this, I watched a bit of the screener and it had me hooked. It was like
Yeah.
just a lot of good history stuff. I think it's a 3-part series. I've only again seen like the first 10 minutes or so of it, but it's like some history stuff, and I just love seeing all the old uniforms and all the classic moments and all the Belfry stuff. As bad as the Belfry is, I just all the highlights there are so fascinating to watch. There's so many great, triumphant moments, so many chokes. Like it is just such a unique history with all those events. I think the modern Ryder Cup is quite dull compared to like
Yeah.
the back in the day when this event was really close and it was two tours going head to head more so than it is all these people that just live in Florida.
For
Uh,
as like offended as we are by the Belfry, like it's not any different than Hazeltine.
no,
You
it was a good
know?
stage too. It was a good stage for match play and they had good crazy crowds out there and all that stuff. So other notes, I had Miles Russell, our local Jacks kid here. He won the junior players here. Charlie Woods made an ace as well, just down the street here. But just that's somebody whose progress we've been tracking somewhat closely.
Yeah.
He was a quarterfinalist, I believe, at the yeah, made the final 8, whatever that is. Is that quarterfinals?
Quarterfinals.
Yeah, quarterfinals at the U.S. Amateur a couple of weeks ago, and then goes on to win the junior players. So congrats to Miles.
Yeah, I think Charlie, he's got his same genetic tendencies as his dad as far as belt wearing. He's just incapable of centering a belt. I think it looked way too big for him. I thought that was just must kind of run in the genes. Trying to think otherwise. Yeah,
Kapalua.
Kapalua. Yeah, there was a big water kerfuffle over at Kapalua. It sounds like with the Maui Pineapple Land Management that's like a big landowner on Maui and I think owns the watershed is not properly maintaining allegedly not properly maintaining some of the mechanisms that they use to supply water to the golf course on the plantation course and the bay course. So it sounds like the grass is just straight up dying. They've closed it for the next few months in order to try to save it so they can have the century there in
Mm.
January. That's bleak. Sally, I know you were running around this weekend. I actually caught quite a bit of the FM championship up at TPC Boston on the LPGA. Very good leaderboard. And I didn't realize Miranda Wang was such a like fan favorite. I guess she'd been friend of Rosang's and a few other players out there and just a very popular winner amongst her peers. But finished one ahead of Gino. Gino played great. I mean, 4 rounds in the 60s. Wang had a nice cushion heading into Sunday. But really good leaderboard. Se Young Kim, Andrea Lee finished 4 back. Rose finished 5 back. Kind of really separated. The more I watch golf at TPC Boston, I kind of miss it a little bit.
That was a nice fall event, man. I liked that one. Gil Hans is a cock, like all of that stuff. That was from Luke Donald and all that stuff. Like the redo that 18th green. That was a fun event. JT played on the wrong fairway. There's some highlights of that one.
Yeah, I feel like like Horschel won there. It always just seemed like it identified good ball strikers. Like you couldn't fake your way around there. And it was even just, going down through the top 20, like Madeline Sagstrom played well, Brooke Henderson played well, Lottie Wode, Minji, like it's kind of ball strikers golf course. So glad that event's on the schedule. That's a very good spot on the calendar for the LPGA.
I feel like I should clarify in case you don't remember that story. That was a leaked DM that Luke Donald had about the redesigned 18th green.
He tweeted it, right? No,
It
he thought it was a DM
yeah,
and he tweeted it.
He accidentally tweeted it. Yeah. Just in case.
Thoughtful LD. I mean, Soly, you can chalk that one up to the list of things that you're antagonizing the European team about, right?
Oh, I do miss that golf course. That's a good shout.
I'm trying to think what else. Scotty and Rory are going to headline a December team golf event.
It's going to change the game.
Yeah, I think that's at Trump International down in Jupiter area. Sounds like it's going to be a skills competition sort of thing. So we will monitor that. Speaking of monitoring, did you see Robert Garrigus hopping on with Monday Q with Ryan from Monday Q?
You gotta tickle out of that one.
I did. It's both the facial hair and the Oakley Eagle shirt. It was just epic. Brad Faxon said on Toronto radio that the PGA Tour contacted NBC on Saturday, the Tour Championship, and told them that they were talking too much about the Ryder Cup on their broadcast.
I believe that.
I feel like the Tour may contact you and tell you're talking too much about the Ryder Cup on this here podcast.
Well, we believe it or not, we do not have an official relationship with the PGA Tour, and that phone line I don't believe is open to criticisms like that. Now, I hate bending over backwards to defend the Tour. I mean, it's not they're talking about an event that's not theirs, and covering their Tour Championship. I know they got some work to do on the Tour Championship. I know that one seems reasonable, TC, to pick up the phone and be like, guys, can we hone in on this event a little bit more?
I think they were plenty honed in on the Tour Championship.
Well, but here's what I won't let NBC off the hook on is the Russian nesting doll of self-promotion. Like, they're promoting it because they have the Ryder Cup. If CBS had the Ryder Cup, NBC would not be doing that. So,
same thing with the Olympics something like that.
So that's where that's the only I wouldn't. I'll somewhat allow that, I guess, because they're getting a little carried away with it too. He should pick him. He's going to pick himself. I think he should pick himself.
I mean, Nuclear Golf said he was going to pick himself. They did a whole breaking news video.
Oh no! Some journalism licenses over at Nuclear Golf are going to be suspended, unfortunately, over that.
Augusta National and the RNA teaming up to award some national opens, some guaranteed spots in these majors. Scottish Open, which was already guaranteed via the PGA Tour co-sanctioning, but Spanish Open, Japan Open, Hong Kong Open, Australian Open champion, South African Open champion. So would love to see Argentina break through something of that nature.
And the fall events will no longer be getting exemptions into the Masters. The winners will not be getting those. So I think that is a very fair redistribution of those exemptions into national opens around the world, and probably propping up fields in those events. For guys that are right on that bubble of top 50 and things like that, they might go travel to these events to go pursue that. I think that's a good thing for the world of golf.
Tough scene for hitters at the Vidanta,
Mexico,
Vidanta World Mexico Open. Hate that. I imagine the Argentina Open's not getting it just because that's a Corn Ferry Tour event.
I would imagine so. Also, that event now going to the fall and being a Mexico Open that's not a national open. No exemption for that one.
Your guy Ben Griffin, he was at the grocery store buying some Johnny Pops. That was a cool video. Love seeing that. Didn't love seeing Mike Sposa in the semis, or did he make the finals?
I didn't make the finals, I don't think, but I think he was in the semis of the U.S.
174 PGA Tour starts, or pro golf starts.
I thought it was more than that, wasn't it?
No, they messed up the graphic. It said 1,174, or like 1,740 or something. I think people were like, "Wait, he would have had to play."
Wait, what? It's like more than Jay Haas
for like 45 years. But yeah, what's your stance on reinstated AM stuff?
I just don't. I don't know what. I don't know what we're doing with these championships. I don't know what an amateur is anymore. And I get that, like, especially with NIL stuff, that becomes a more confusing thing. But I don't think you should get your AM status reinstated ever. Like, if you've ever felt you were good enough at golf to dedicate yourself to it professionally, like there's no other job you're working, like you are trying to make money off the game of golf by your results. Like that should be
Not by being a teaching pro. You're saying teaching pro,
correct.
you should be
Teaching
able to get
pro, yeah,
reinstated.
yeah, like playing in competitive events. Maybe there's like a minimum dollar threshold.
That's
You
my
know,
thing. Like, I think if you've held a card for more than like 2 or 3 seasons and didn't just have a cup of coffee after college or something like that, like, I think there should be like, hey, you made 50 cuts or something like that, or 30 cuts, you know?
yeah, like I played an event. I've told this story before, but I played an event with a guy, and I mean, he was really, really nice player. And I walked out, said something to somebody. He's like, yeah, like that guy he can really hit it. He was like, oh yeah, I mean, he played on the Corn Ferry Tour for like 4 years. I'm like, well, fuck, man. Like, why are we playing in the same tournament? I just don't. And they're way too liberal giving this stuff away. Like if
And not
you,
even making guys wait anymore.
I know it's absurd. Like I feel bad example, but I'll apply it here too. Like Justin Huber has his amateur status back. I've played a
That's
lot of golf with that guy.
insane.
We should not be playing in the same golf tournament ever, ever. Like he's so much better. Like I think the USGA needs to create a true US mid-am. Like you can't ever have been a pro, and then make a former pro division if you want to. Like make a separate
Yeah.
championship division. Like it just the fact that especially you can get into the Masters by giving up your pro status and playing in like USGA events. It's just I don't know. I don't know you're the best failed pro. Is that
What if
the
they
title, the accomplishment?
what if they allowed, all right, if you want to get your AM status back, you're allowed to play in the USAM, but you can't play in the mid AM or the
I would
senior AM.
that would
But
make a
you
lot
can
more
play in the
sense.
AM as long as you want,
Sure.
you know?
Tee it up with
Or
all
I
the
mean, as
college
long as you
kids and
qualify. Yeah.
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 That,
Like, be our guest, right?
yeah.
Um,
That's better than this because it kind
yeah.
of ruins
And
it. But
it's not like sour grapes. Oh, these guys are so good. It's legitimately like, oh, these guys honed their craft
right.
nonstop for years and years and years upon, and then we're in the pressure cooker of pro golf, you know.
Right. Which, yeah, like
Props to
create a
Mike
stage for
McCoy.
those guys to
Yeah,
compete, like, but I don't know.
yeah.
That's what,
Well, props to Mike McCoy. He's first champion of the mid am and the U.S. Senior Am.
and that's not who we're talking about here. Like he
Correct.
is not been a professional golfer.
It's a
So
job. He's had
a
a job for a long time.
real congrats to Mr. McCoy. So
Yeah. Also, Brendan Quinn had a really fun piece on the Lido course. I don't know if you saw that. That was in the Athletic this week. And then, yeah, otherwise, reading wise, it's kind of, you know, goes in with our topic of today's podcast. But Eamon had a great piece in Golf Week about previous, antitrust, anti-competitive litigation being lobbed at some of the other tours, like the ATP tour. And their defense was, this is good for the players, or sorry, good for the fans. And so he basically said the PGA Tour is about to be legally forced to prioritize fans over players, which is crazy to just think of that. Like legally, they have to.
it's
So
what we've
love
been
that.
waiting for, man. It's what we've been waiting for. Well, I'd say without any further delay, let's get to our main topic here. But before we do that, why don't you give a shout out to our friends at Holderness Bourne?
Oh my gosh, Soly. It was September. What is it? September 1st today?
It is.
You know what that is? It was in the 70s today here in Florida.
Kind
That
of
means we're
nice.
almost to the point we can wear
Don't get
Wards,
faked out. Don't get
Wallace's,
faked out. It's not
Sullivan's.
over.
Oh, I know we have, a month and a half, 2 months more of 90-degree weather. The Hamilton hoodie, super lightweight and heathered colors. I know that's a personal favorite of yours. I would say the Ivy colorway. I've been wearing that, especially I've got that in the McDonald. It's like this kind of dusty faded, like dark green. It's cool. That's been a really, really hot seller. The cotton styles are awesome, especially for the fall. I think those play really, really well. Super classic. And then The shorts, I always call it the shorts. Shorts are like that's what I wear on the golf course.
And great
Um,
off the golf course as well. They're just
yeah,
really good
they got the
shorts.
cords now too. So NLU10 at hbgolf.com for 10% off your first order. And this and our trap draw code are the only ones on the market for H&B. And I think they're our longest running partnership on the apparel side. Like we've been stocking their stuff in our pro shop since like literally 2015 or 2016, like the first season they were around.
It's a
So
decade.
it's crazy. And it just gets a little bit better every season. I would also call it the forest shirt. It's like these light, like kind of trees, little trees. They've got it in Dune, which is like a tan. They've got it in that aforementioned ivy color, Andover, which is like a blue, and then Bedford, which is a light blue. So
NLU10, hbgolf.com for 10% off your first order. All right, let's bring in the pie man.
All right, guys, shifting gears. DJ here, jumping in because this is a conversation I think a lot of us have wanted to have for a couple weeks here. A lot of shakeups going on at the PGA Tour. We saw Brian Rolapp speaking, kind of addressing the public in a big way for the first time back at the Tour Championship, talking about onboarding as the new CEO of the PGA Tour. A lot of stuff to get into because I think he said a lot of interesting stuff. I think he's going to do a lot of interesting stuff, and maybe we can kind of get our arms around what some of that might be. A little table setting, a little FAQ for the people. Who is Brian Rolapp? Great question. Great question. Like I mentioned, he's the new CEO of the PGA Tour. He's coming over from the National Football League. Potential ball knower, TC. We don't know about his
I think
bona
certified ball
fides
knower.
there, but
Yeah.
definitely in and around the world of ball for the last 20 years as the chief media and business officer of the league. The next question a lot of people are probably asking very rightfully, TC, probably loudest here. What's the difference between CEO and commissioner? What does this mean for Jay Monahan? Jay Monahan's in the process right now, as far as we know, of transitioning all of his day-to-day duties to Rolapp. Jay's tenure is going to probably conclude after his contract expires, which is not till the end of the 2026 season. I don't know if we're going to talk a
Which
ton of.
DJ, I think from everything we've heard, I think Jay's gonna get that golden parachute at the end of this year. I don't think they're gonna need an 18-month
That's a long time.
ramp up period for roll app. I think
That
he's like, all right, you know what? I've been in the job 30 days. I think I got it.
that kind of feels a little bit of a like I'm down the road if you need me sort of thing. I don't know if you need me at the office every day until the end of 2026. But as far as what Rolapp said, I mean, I know we talked about this on the pod. He left a very good impression for pretty much, I think universally, like a lot of energy, a lot of people, excited about some potential change. A couple specific things he said that I wanted to pull out that I really liked. Quote, I said when I took the job, I would take it with a clean sheet of paper, and that is still true. My fan letter on day one, I said we're going to honor tradition, but we're not going to be overly bound by it. Now we're going to start turning that blank sheet of paper into action with an idea to aggressively build on the foundation that we have. Sounds like that's already going on. TC, we're going to get into this in a second, but Josh Carpenter piece about some kind of optional early retirement stuff going on at the tour. I think they're shaking stuff up already, going and shaking the trees over at the global home. Another quote that I know we've all kind of gotten a good kick out of. Look, the sports business is not that complicated. You get the product right, you get the right partners, and your fans will reward you with their time because they're telling you it's good and they want more of it. And then the commercial and the business part will take care of itself. Love that. Love hearing that. He continues, and then you have to just constantly innovate. I think if there's anything I learned at the NFL, it's that we did not sit still. We changed the rules every March. We changed the kickoff rule. That's what I mean by honoring tradition, but not being bound by it. I think that level of innovation is what we are going to do here. Last thing for me, and then I will turn it over to you guys. He also announced a 9-person future competition committee, a little bit of an adventure, Avengers for fixing pro golf here. That is going to be headed by Tiger Woods, Eldrick Taunt Woods, committee leader. Also on the committee, Patrick Cantlay, Adam Scott, Camila Villegas, Mav McNeely, Keith Mitchell, Joe Gorder, who you guys mentioned a couple weeks ago, might have all the juice. A lot of he's sitting on a lot of boards right now. John Henry from Red Sox and Fenway Sports fame, and Theo Epstein, the guy who fixed baseball, the guy who won the World Series, all of those things. The committee is aiming to explore how to maximize three things, according to our guy Rolapp: parity, simplicity, making the game and its playoffs and its finals and its season long this, that, and the other thing easy to understand, and scarcity. How many events do we have? Do they feel like big events when we have them? So, did I miss anything? Slash anything else as far as initial impressions?
No, but I think it is funny. I think there was the praise for Rolapp was so universal that became kind of a theme on Twitter. I always love when he does this. The everybody tweeting about Rolapp like he's like Magic Johnson right now. And I got a quick funny story. And again, I was like, we're probably are guilty of that. I think it's justified for some reasons we're going to get into. But funny story, when I was at the Tour Championship, I'm talking to a longtime veteran of the golf industry. And, I'm asking, like, what do you think of the roll-up thing? I'm like, pretty impressive, right? And he's like, he kind of laughs. He was like, you know what? Like, the last time this happened, like there was a year where Monahan was under Tim Fincham, and they went around to all the sponsors and, introduced him and introduced the relationship. And, as it went along, everybody just, Monahan, what a great guy. Like, unbelievable guy. What a great guy. Tim Fincham's eventually commented and said, I've never seen somebody so universally praised everywhere we go. And he just found that a bit ironic here, as Monahan will be exiting.
Soly, I will say that everybody, it's not that I don't think we're hearing that Rolapp is such a nice guy or what a great guy. It's universally like that guy's fucking smart.
He's
Like,
serious about
Serious,
this too. Yeah.
he says what he means and he means what he says, and he thinks on his feet. And I think that's the differentiation a little bit, right?
And I think framing some of this as well. I mean, obviously there was the public press conference that, everyone got a taste of what he's like and what he's about. But we also spent maybe 30 minutes with him in the Creator Council meeting the day before the press conference. And like, it was, kind of just a Q&A session. I got the chance to pepper him with a bunch of questions, and I was just, again, really impressed by him. And we're not going to, go shot for shot about what that meeting was about. But I walked away. I made the comment to you guys afterwards. It was like somebody took 10 years of our podcast and put it in Chat GPT and asked somebody to, like, make a summary of, like, how you would go about proposing changes to the structure of PGA Tour golf. Because that's kind of what it sounded like. I was ready to run through a wall after it, of, like, again, without even being prompted on it, bringing up 4 to 5 of the major issues I see with the PGA Tour and, like, making those a priority to be addressed, and just being serious about it. And being somewhat dismissive, like, rather dismissive about certain things of how things have been done, right? The models that are in place and the competitive structure and all of those things, to the point where, like, I believe him, and I'm ready to be a sucker on this, but I'm also ready to believe him and that he's going to try his best to do all this stuff. I think there's a little bit of I don't want to say naivete about getting this stuff through. I think he knows the challenge is going to be there in getting stuff through with the structure. But if there's going to be somebody that's going to break things down to the studs and rebuild it, I think this is the dude.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. I agree with that. All of that. It's funny when an outsider, quote unquote, does come in and you start to all these things that were sacred cows beforehand. It's just like, we could never touch that because of it's always been that way. When you have to explain it to somebody who's an outsider, it's like, yeah, it does sound pretty stupid, actually. Now that yeah, maybe we could do that differently. And I feel like, there's going to be a lot of those things, which is kind of funny.
Well,
But
yeah, I think from the Monahan, just like my 2 cents here, I think Monahan was very much like, he came from within the golf industry with Fenway Sports Group, and before that, IMG, and just, or one of the agencies that they kind of rolled up into that, and very much like the continuity play, the safe play.
Yeah.
And I think with Fincham, it was just kind of like, hey, this is my trusted lieutenant. This is the guy that's just it's gonna be a smooth transition, and things are gonna be exactly as they have been, right? And that was the hope. And now it's like his mandate is completely different. Of, no, like, we need full scale change. This thing's gotten so complacent, and because I think there was a time after, we thought 20, I think, what, Monahan took over 2016, 2017
17,
ish,
yeah.
and he'd already been, deputy commissioner. Before that, he was, in charge of the players and all of that. And it was just these small incremental changes or improvements. And I think at some point we wanted to see, hey, you know what, and I think we started hearing, hey, 2020, we're going to get a new TV deal and everything's going to change, or the schedule's going to look a lot different. And of course, COVID happens, but COVID, in hindsight, could have and should have been a uh, gasoline a little bit to use to like change things up and kind of light a fire. And they really, kind of frittered that away as far as just changing the makeup of the organization and stuff. And I know they were trying to keep the lights on and all of that, but like it just felt like after a year or two of Monahan on the job, it's like, all right, cool. Like he's going to put his fingerprint on this thing and we're going to feel like there's new leadership here. And it felt like it was like Tim Fincham 2.0, but without the power of Tim Fincham and the that kind of iron fist. And I know Rollup's going to find, I'm sure there's all sorts of bodies buried in the yard, as far figurative bodies in the yard, not literal.
That we
But
know of.
yeah, like I mean, shit, you saw it last week with the Shupak reporting of who knows how literal this is of granting Eastlake the tour championship in perpetuity, right? Or stuff like that. And but I think Rolap said something really interesting. I don't know if it was in his presser or in that meeting. Like, hey, like at some point, all of these leagues were
Yeah.
essentially trade organizations, or like they were just to represent their members. And at some point, they've all taken the jump from that to global sports media, sports business entities. And I think
Through
the tour
challenges
has,
from other leagues,
yeah,
like through AFL, NFL, USFL, ABA,
yeah,
NBA, things
ABA,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's, so it's like, hey, this is golf's time to do that. And I think, and shit, the NBA, you're seeing it right now with even they're being challenged globally by Maverick and LeBron, and there's the Euro League that they're trying to integrate in and all of that stuff. So I think, we'll see what happens with DP World Tour and Live. That's a separate conversation. But I think overall, it just seems like this is a guy that he's been dealing with 32 billionaires with like the biggest egos on the planet over the last 15, 20 years. And he's Roger Goodell's kind of like the way that Roger Goodell's gotten a lot of stuff done. And this is the guy that focused on the product, like focused on Thursday night football, making that can't miss, NFL international stuff, red zone, all like actual tangible improvements to stuff. And I just, you see it and you're like, man, that resume, there's a lot of action. And I think we're already seeing it with, I think today is his 30th day on the job. And they had an all hands meeting this morning, I think it was yesterday or this morning.
We're
Tiger
recording
showed
this part
up.
of the conversation
Yeah.
on Thursday, August 28th, for the record. Yeah.
Tiger showed up, gave him his full backing and said, no, like I trust this guy implicitly to carry through on what he's been mandated to do. And I think that, change looks like personnel changes. Change looks like reallocation of resources, right? Like it's, change isn't easy, and it seems like they're doing it the right way from a, hey, they're not pushing anybody out the door, but they're saying, hey, there's gonna be a lot of change here. And unless you're comfortable with that, like I would suggest taking this sort of package. And they got to get new people in the door, right? They got to find the people who are going to build the tour for the future here. But I think I think some people were disappointed with the 2026 schedule. I think that's like unrealistic to think that he's going to be able to do anything 2 weeks into the job on something. And I think that's one of the challenges, I think, overall of like all of these. I think he's going to do a much better job of lining stuff up to end in the same dates, or same year, and batch everything so that media rights wise and tournament sponsorship wise and all of that stuff, this stuff is all in concert and on the same cadence and everything. But like overall, it seems like he's talked to, I don't know, 20-30% of the guys on tour in a pretty deep, meaningful, thoughtful way, and gotten their feedback. And it sounds like meritocracy is a big thing as well. So, hopefully we see some more cuts come back, or just, less of that signature feel, or if we are going to do the signature stuff, make those feel differentiated. But also, you know, like he's just hit the ground running. I'm really, really impressed with like, hey, we are going to rethink everything. Everything is on the table, and there's some good stuff there already, and we're going to go with that. So fired up, guys.
Well, I'm fired up too. I want to almost take a step back here because I think step 2 is like lots of change coming. Get ready. Get ready. We got all kinds of changes. We're going to change everything. Everything's on the
What
table.
is that change?
Step 1 is like what's the goal? What are we actually
What's
talking about
wrong?
here? And
Yeah.
what's wrong is one option or one question. And then I think question 2 is like what's the goal? What are we talking about, like making PGA Tour golf, are we trying to become NFL 2.0? Are we trying to make it a slightly above averagely watched niche sport? Are we trying to get more people playing the game? Are we trying to get, like, all of these things I know are probably true to some extent, but Soly, when I ask you what the goal of all this change is, what do you think your response is?
I think, you know, kind of if you back up into what are the biggest problems right now with the tour, you know, working from there, I think the over commercialization of the project would be kind of top of the list for me, right? I think the lack of too many events still, I think, is an issue.
Real quick, when you say over commercialization,
Too many commercial interruptions when I'm watching the sport.
because I think there's two different themes there, right? There's over commercialization of, are there too many sponsors or too much clutter, or is it how they're commercializing it?
How,
Because
I
I
would
think
say. I would say I
yeah,
don't care how you get your money in the door, right? It's just if it's going to greatly impact my viewing habits and my desire to watch your product, I think that's a pretty big inhibitor, right? And I think that's
totally
something
agree.
we've been well documented on. I think you know, I brought that up in the meeting actually, and he kind of perked up at that, as in like, yeah, I think this is actually one of the least commercialized products out there. And, you know, part of the conversation just went to like, hey man, I think the Players Championship is broadcasted like this is a serious event that's well worth my time. And like the week before at Bay Hill feels like I'm watching an infomercial a lot of the time. And like I think those two should, if they're going to tell me these things are somewhat equal things, and I know the Players in a special category, but like the signature events of the PGA Tour need to feel like the Players Championship does, which is a big sporting event versus an infomercial. So that's a massive thing. And I think there's big steps to be made on the competitive product. I mean, we're in year whatever of the FedEx Cup, I think is an adult now. I think it can vote. And we just, you know, it ends with the biggest poof you can imagine. I think that's a massive challenge. I don't have an easy answer. We've given a ton of ideas on what to do, but like, I think the challenges of like trying to end the season in the summer, you know, as not a lot of other sports leagues are, you want that kind of moment to be your own, but, you know, you'd like, in theory, the PGA Tour season to end at the Players or to end with like your version of a Super Bowl. So I think a big thing you need to fix is how do you conclude this season with like something equal to the Players or a new event or whatever it is. Call it Tour Championship for all you want, but it's got to be rebranded. Like bring somebody in that does the Super Bowl, I think is probably a good first step of that understands kind of how you improve the competitive product. If we've got two tours, let's say that. Let's address that. Let's figure out what that looks like. I don't think the same schedule needs to have the Rocket Classic on it and the Masters and the Players on it. Like I just think there's a championship series and I think there's a sub series. And I think there's a way that you can reconfigure how all that it works. And like the current structure we're looking at is a bolt-on on a bolt-on on a bolt-on. Like that's just how things have always been done. And we're going to fantasize about what like redoing all this looks like. And it's kind of hard to fantasize about. It's a challenge. So actually doing it, I recognize how great of a challenge it is, but you also just don't show up on your first day and like insist on how much significant change you're going to push through if you're not serious about it. And again, I know he's kind of aiming for this much, knowing he's going to get this much in all likelihood. But again, I guess I feel as good as possible to your point, TC, about Monahan was brought in to keep things going the way they were. This guy is not brought in to keep things going how they were. There's good things going on. Ratings have been good this past year. You got some good, solid stars. Couple things he said I'm a little concerned about with the parody, related comments and things like that.
I think there's a lot of parody already, right?
There's maybe too much parody already.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to take it what he's saying too literally and kind of project what I think he means by that. But, I think to your point, Deej, it's not going to be the NFL. It is not going to be like any team sports. It is a unique sport in that we do not, you and I love talking baseball because the decisions made internally within one single team are endlessly fascinating. And like the NFL can get up every morning in May because of all of these personnel decisions that are endlessly fascinating, right? And golf is not like that. It's not like you can just copy paste things into the most popular sports leagues and expect that to be the case. I don't think it should expect to become the second most popular sports in the United States. But at the same time, people fucking love golf, man. They love golf, and they love golf on YouTube. And I think professional golf has run the risk of like sliding back in priority when there's other options to consume golf. If you don't get like the competitive product and the
I would
commercial
say
product,
non-major
yes,
professional golf.
yes. Don't get the professional product, competitive structure, and the commercial product the way it's presented on television like really good. People are going to pass on spending their time doing that, and especially young people. So, very long answer. I covered too much there, but like, there's a lot that still needs addressed at the same time. Like, it is the leading, it's got first, I don't know if this is technically first mover advantage, whatever it is. Like, they've got a history. Like, they have such a great floor built into this. They have the history of events. It's found on the same channels, essentially. It's another topic, but on NBC or CBS on weekends, you flip it on and it's going to be there. Like, that's what props the whole thing up. You can build from that core, while tearing down some other things.
So a couple things on that front. Going back to like the goals question rather than the problems question, because I agree with all the problems. I think the goals, everything you're saying points back to TV ratings. I think is number one. Like, we're going to try to just spike TV ratings and get those to where they quote unquote should be.
Which they've got a good head start. Like, they're like,
they do, but my
things are
question,
back on the upswing at least.
My question is whether there's an artificial. My question is what the ceiling on that is, and I think this is where we're going to find our first impasse. Is, man, in order to get a bunch more eyeball, golf is wildly inaccessible. Like, this is an oversimplification, but part of the reason why people love golf is because of the reasons that all the other people hate golf, right? Like, people love that it's slow and like to play. They love that the game is slow and contemplative and challenging and hard and complicated. And, it all, like, it's got a sense of history, and like you need to have a lot of prerequisite knowledge, and you got to know the rules, and that's why golfers love golf. A lot of the reason. And that's what keeps a lot of people from watching the game. So it's like, without figuring out how to bridge that gap, I don't know how TV ratings just go 5x, north of where they are now. So, like, again, maybe that's an oversimplification, but that's one thing. I think the other thing is,
on
ahead.
TV wise, I would also push back, or I think we got to start thinking about it like eyeballs instead of TV ratings, because
Yeah.
I think here in the next 5, 6 years, like, it's gonna be, this is the guy that got Netflix involved in the NFL, right? Or Amazon Prime for Thursday nights, or like kind of eventizing some of these games. But I think some of it is like, hey, how do you, PGA Tour app? How do you get people watching something on that, right? Or consuming it where, meeting people wherever they are, instead of just relying upon that CBS, NBC, because to a certain extent that consumer is also, mm, you know, some of them are dying, right?
Totally. That's a very good pushback. I totally agree, because I think it also extends to the shoulder programming and
Yeah.
the other stuff that's on YouTube and the other stuff that's like on Golf Channel or wherever it, ends up. So yes, totally agree. The second goal I was going to say that we haven't really talked about yet is kind of the Monopoly board game element of this. Like, what other pieces are they going to pick up? Because right now, famously, the tour does not own any of the 5 biggest events in golf. They're sitting on this war chest of somewhere between 1.5 and $3 billion of SSG money. It's like, what does that mean? Where are they going to deploy that? What are they going to put that into? I got to like, said simply, I got to think one of his goals is spending that money, right? And getting to a point where they can make some serious moves to try to, just improve their standard. Because right now they're basically the organization that has to fund 90% of these guys' earnings for a given year without
Mhm.
owning any of the 5 biggest events without owning the majors, the Ryder Cup, like, but still it's like, no, no, no. The players are coming to them constantly like, you need to provide for us. You need to provide for us. And they don't have the horses in the back on those biggest events where they could really maximize things the most. So uh TC, I want to throw this one to you. Let's say, you get 5 minutes uh with Mr. Rolapp here. What's the top priority for you? Where do you think he should start?
Um, I think you start with I think you start with the product. What is the product? Product is as simple as the venue they're like the course they're playing on. How you set that course up. Uh, how you do the build out around that course, how you cover the golf tournament on TV, all of that, like that's the product. And I think some of that comes back to, you know, like some of this could be even rollback related, right? Of like, hey, why can't they play great venues? Well, because most of them are too short now.
Yeah.
Why are they too short? Because technology's out of control. And various factors on that front. And so I think there's something to be said for like, all right, like maybe rethink the tour's position on that stuff of, hey, I think if you had more volatility, even, all right, you want more parity or you want greatness to be able to separate. Like, I think if anything, like technology has actually neutered the difference between a great player and a very good player. Um, I think at the end of the day, it probably hurt Tiger more than it hurt anybody else, And so I would say, all right, focus on the product there, venues, and schedule. Like, go to the right places at the right times. They go to the wrong places at the wrong times, and they go to the right places at the wrong times too. Like Pebble Beach, Riviera, those places. Like, I know the West Coast swing is sacred. Who says we need to play the West Coast swing in
February.
February? Why don't we play the West Coast swing in April or early May, post Masters golf swings in full effect. You got more daylight, courses are in better shape. Get people stoked for that. You move the Florida swing earlier, maybe, or especially if you're going to oversee those courses anyway. How do you make this into a global product? I think a lot of this work has already been done of breaking the old model a little bit of like, all right, there was two tours, even when it was WGCs, there were kind of two tours to begin with. They've just codified that a little bit more now with signature events and the way that the point structure works. How do you do that globally now? How do Solly, you were talking about Rocket, right? Or John Deere, right? Like those tournaments, they're great tournaments, and I don't think those should go anywhere. But I think, hey, how do you make it like the whole key to the entire the foundation of the entire tour was the fact that Rocket Mortgage and uh, Wells Fargo were the same on the same tier. And now they've broken that. Cool. Like, let's just stop trying to BS ourselves into saying that those two things are equal because they're not. And I think then you can say, all right, we're gonna have this, it's like ATP. We're gonna have a ATP 500 tournament. We're gonna have ATP 1000. And the 500 tournaments, like maybe you make an opportunity to go to more places. Maybe some of those top tier Corn Ferry Tour events in emerging markets like a Nashville or, you know, Portland or somewhere like that. Like maybe those tournaments turn into PGA Tour events, right? There's less of a delineation between Corn Ferry Tour and PGA Tour. I think the way that they're going to figure out how to do how to extract value or like they're gonna play hardball with the majors to a certain extent with like, all right, you want our players for the PGA Championship or the Ryder Cup or cool. Like then you have to basically either give us an equity stake or and that's gonna piss off traditionalists. It's not a great way of going about it from a relationships perspective, but that's the leverage, right? That's the tool that they have in their arsenal for it. And I think you'll see that with like you saw it a little bit with NFL and ESPN. NFL just did an equity stake in ESPN. Right? It's like, all right, cool. Like, do you want us to be invested in your success here, or do you want us to just take you off the board and Netflix can outbid you guys all day. I think it's the same thing with the PGA Championship, especially. I think the Masters, U.S. Open Championship are more insulated from that. But I think PGA Championship, it's like, all right, this is it's an under-realized asset. I don't think it's run particularly well right now. I don't think they're going to the right places, and I don't think it has an identity. And then also, like, how do you move from the Quad Cities to being a truly global thing, like tennis or Formula One or, something like that, to where it's truly an event and it's truly a reflection of the place. And you do that again by going to the right cities or the right parts of the world at the right time as well. And I think I was stoked to see the RNA and Augusta National make that step with, national opens this week. It's like, all right, cool. How do you do that even more? How do you lean on, how do you bring the Australian Open into the fold? How do you reverse? And I know some of this is like, if Scotty Scheffler and Jordan Spieth don't want to travel internationally, cool. Like that's your right. But like, you're a global, you're the world number 5 player or the world number 12 player. You're expected to play worldwide. And if you just want to hang out and play rank and file PGA Tour events here at home, that's your choice. But at the end of the day, like, if you want to play against the best in the world more often, whether that's 14, 15, 18 times a year, like, you're going to have to travel outside the country. And then, I think then you naturally have more eyeballs on everything because you're bringing in a global audience, you're bringing in global sponsors instead of tapping into, you know, somebody's North America corporate budget. You're tapping into their worldwide marketing budget. It's that, like, that's the reason some companies don't work in golf. It's so siloed between, hey, we're DP World Tour sponsor or PGA Tour sponsor or whatever. No, like, we are a global sponsor of golf. So think, a lot of this stuff, like, I give the tour credit to a certain extent. I don't think Jay did it willingly, but I think over the last 2-3 years with SSG, I think SSG's been calling the shots as far as, hey, here's our commercial strategy. I think that they've gotten ahead. Like, the studios thing is big time. I think having the wherewithal to own and produce the world feed and be able to do that. Now, do I think they're doing a great job with it? No. Or do I think that they're staffing PGA Tour Live correctly, or they're staffing, like, some of the subjective things seem to be off as well. But I would say, like, man, I would make a deal with the DP World Tour and try to buy them. And then I would try to develop some other venues as well, like, whether that's, from a land use perspective, or bring a Chambers Bay into the fold, or bring some West Coast venues into the fold, because it's crazy. And then I would offload some of the other TPC network courses that, like, if you can't have a golf tournament at a TPC network course, like, I know it's, some of them are just licensed, some of them were developed and built, purpose built to host PGA Tour events, and you can't even host a fucking like, and some of these you can't even host like Q School, or you can't even host a Corn Ferry Tour event. That's insane. Get it out of the network. Simplify your business. I think they're going to buy the Sawgrass Marriott. I think that's something I would do. Is,
All right, DC, the
just
question was,
take
what
control
would
of
be
your
the first thing that you would do? And you're now
Holy
buying
shit.
buying the
take
Sawgrass Marriott.
control of your I would take control of your tee sheet over at TBC Sawgrass. I would rethink the President's Cup in a big way. I would bring back a match play event. Like, there's stuff that you can do that shows, hey, we are looking out for traditionalists, or we are looking out for the core fan. I would, yeah, but yeah, I mean, Solly, your turn. I mean,
I'm
what
not
would you do
fucking following. I'm not
schedule-wise?
following that. I'm not following that. Absolutely not. You left nothing for the rest of us. Absolutely nothing.
Mr. Player, how are you this morning?
I would say this would be like, just make watching the PGA Tour an enjoyable experience. Make it cinematic. Make it worth my time.
Yeah.
Make it less of a chore. Improve, streamline the commercialization aspect of it. Make it feel like I'm watching a big sporting event. Low handheld cams, cinematic. Like, DJ, this I hate this. I don't think this example, like, fixes everything, but the way the Mets broadcast
so
baseball,
cool.
it's a cinematic experience, and I'll flip it on from time to time, just of like, I was looking for what the right word is. It's is it I don't know what the right word is in terms of just like making it feel experiential and feeling like I wish I was there, or I feel like
There's
I'm
kind of a
there.
romanticism to it almost,
Yeah,
right?
just like
Like golf, the biggest the biggest advantage I think golf has is that it goes to beautiful places outside,
how I
right?
feel about Maui when
Yeah,
when Kapalua was on, especially when I lived in Chicago, it was just like this vicariousness to it of like, man,
yeah.
I wish I was there, or I kind of feel like I'm there, and I'm transported into that world right now, and this is
That's
what
what
I'm
makes the
doing.
Masters special,
Yes,
right?
Totally.
this
That's
is
the secret sauce. And I think Soly too, like if you go to the even Pebble, if you go to Pebble at a better time of the year and
Yeah.
it's firmer or faster and the ball is on the
Or
ground,
it's just not raining and blowing
or it's
40.
not raining or whatever, like there's more chances to be cinematic, or there's more chances to tell a story. And I think the golf, frankly, is just more dramatic as well.
Well, I think there is something to that, right? That's where my initial pushback of like, I don't know how are they going to keep the traditionalists and bring in all these casual fans? Like, well, you just go to places that are beautiful to look at.
Yeah.
You make it a product that's beautiful to look at, and I think it's very relaxing. It's a very relaxing thing to watch, and I think people enjoy spending time on the couch, or they would enjoy spending time on the couch watching it if it was something you could sink your teeth into and it was not a chore, like you said, Solly. I think the only thing I agree with everything you guys have said, even the Sawgrass Marriott thing, TC. I would say on my top of my bullet point would be drilling down on Solly what you said, the two tours thing is like, man, we've been so stuck on this, like, how do we give all the best players, how do we funnel all the best players in the world endless amounts of money without it feeling like we're just writing them a check and kind of bending over backwards to create all these technically competitive ways for them to get it, but really we're just trying to make them not leave for live. And it's just become this erector set that just doesn't make any sense. And that's why I was so pumped to hear him say simplicity was one of the things that he was most excited about. I mean, we've talked about this a million times. You know, the only real do or die stuff I feel like you see used to be kind of like the either Q School or the final Corn Ferry Tour event of the year, where there is
Yeah.
some real, like, if he misses this putt, he does not have a job next year type of things. I don't mean for it to be the Hunger Games. I understand that people get injured and you need to have major medicals in place and you need to have different ways to fill the fields and like all of that stuff. But man, there's got to be, when you get to Wyndham, this was always, you know, it's
Yeah.
changed a little bit over the last few years. But when you get to Wyndham and it's like, oh my God, if he misses this putt, I mean, he might not ever play golf again. He's only going to get 21 PGA Tour starts next year if he
That's how
misses
I
this
felt when
putt. And I'm just like,
Zach
God,
finished
man.
126 twice.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I'm gutted for him. And then he was like, oh yeah, I'll probably still get like 16 or 17 starts.
Yeah,
Like,
and it's just I don't know. I love, yeah, I don't know. We've talked about that
but
at
Deej
length.
too, I think something else. I think they've done like treating golf like a sport,
Yeah,
right? Of I think they've gotten better with this. Of like, how, actually, it feels like they're starting to enforce the rules a little bit more, or
yeah,
like, pace of play stuff or that sort of thing. And it just feels like, or just a little bit of transparency on that front too. I think it feels like they're starting to go in the right direction on like, hey, we're not going to soak the golf courses, and we're gonna like they both realize that it's a competition, and that's what at the heart of it, but also it needs to be entertaining, and it's an
yeah,
entertainment product as well. And I think that was lost a little bit of like, no, this is the first tournament of the FedEx Cup playoffs, and we couldn't possibly. It's like they changed the format mid-year this year, which like I know we were kind of shitting on them for it, but like I respect it. Like
yeah.
like it was an improvement over the previous,
It
right?
was.
It I still I don't want to like dismiss what you mean by like the threat of that last spot or the cutoff here, because my example here is actually probably not the best one of just like Formula One. There are like storylines of fourth, fifth, sixth place, all that stuff. But to me, golf is almost, for if you're talking about reaching these casual fans or just like reaching more people or making a product that's really interesting to watch, it's all about those last four holes. Like that's all it is.
Yeah.
I mean, was TPC Southwind, was the St. Jude, was it a good Thursday tournament? Was it a good Friday viewing experience? Like no one will remember that. But, was it like, pardon my take, guys, we're talking about the finish at the St. Jude because it was a really good finish, right? And the competition was close. And so like I still think like that's mostly the through line. But you got to get people in the bucket to be there for when the finish is really good as well, right? That's where like the continuation, like presenting a really good back nine Sunday product is probably like the witching hour on Red Zone. I try my best not to miss because it's just a really good product, right? There's suspense at the end of all of those games. Quick break here to give a shout out to our friends at the Stack System. You can go to thestacksystem.com/NLU, code no laying up. I just completed my second foundational work. My next workout, TC, is going to be a progress check to see what is next. That means I've completed 48 training sessions in my backyard. Just saved a ton of time. You don't have to go to the golf course. You go stretch in the backyard. You move your golf muscles for a little while. I've gained at least 48 sessions. I mean, going back a year and a half, I've been doing this for a long time now. My club head speed is definitely up. You can spend a ton of time in this app getting better at golf. You can be using time doing stack wedges. You can get dialed in from 31 yards, 53 yards, 71, 93. When you get out to the golf course, all of a sudden, if you got like 70 yards, you have a feel in place because you've practiced it. You've honed in trying to hit that exact number. The putting thing is fantastic. You can try out all kinds of different grips and different putters and see what your stats are within the app there. It is a really, really robust tool. And if you want to get better at golf in a fast period of time, I cannot recommend the Stack System enough. Stacksystem.com/NLU, code no laying up will get you 10% off any bundle you want there. Again, stacksystem.com/NLU, code no laying up. Back to the pod.
Any other pie in the sky ideas? We've reached that point. So anything else you want to huck out. And I'm going to start with Soly. I don't think Thursday, Friday needs to be packaged in the same way as Saturday, Sunday. I think that would be another big thing I would write up on the whiteboard is like, man, Thursday golf at noon from John Deere is like, that's just not even the same as Sunday golf from John Deere, right? Like you got to be able to do that differently. It cannot be just like like it's such optional viewing right now. Like honestly, everything has to go so right for me to tune into any of that golf. And I like am on a golf podcast for a job.
Yeah.
I think I would get so much more out of following one group that's mic'd up, creating a super cut of that group, creating something that is just like, man, I'm not going to sit here and watch 8 hours of PGA Tour live. I know the heavy gamblers are maybe watching that stuff. And I'm like, I just don't know if we need to build those Thursday, Friday. Like we can just get so much more experimental, I think, on those Thursday, Fridays of
BJ,
non-majors, non like big time events.
Yeah, I think on that note too, of like, yeah, like, hey, we're gonna like they used to do spotlight coverage on, hey, we're gonna show every guy in the field played this one par three, and you see the different, trajectories or whatever. It's great second screen viewing, and I think like this day and age, I think the tour needs to lean into that. It's the same reason I used to watch like the European tour, even on Thursdays and Fridays, of like Renton Laidlaw would be on the broadcast, and he had a great accent, and it was just like, and
Just
they're not
sense of place.
showing that many golf shots, but it's just a cool place to hang out for a little bit. And and there's just simplicity, and yeah, it's like they're truly transporting me there. Whereas that's tougher when it's, you're watching an event in Ireland or, in the Middle East versus like when it's cold outside versus, in like the Quad Cities. I hate to keep picking on the Quad Cities because I love the John
No, you
Deere,
love
but like, but
Well, no, to that
also I
point,
think
it's like the bare bones version of those broadcasts. It's not worth the exponential cost that it takes to try to get it to
yeah,
like a higher
just show me
like
golf
it's
shots.
almost like
Yeah.
law of diminishing returns. The more you're putting so much money into trying to make those like serious broadcasts on Thursday and Friday that I'm just like, it's pretty much the
Well,
same.
Deej,
Bare
I
bones.
think it's also a little bit like taking like the baseball analogy of like why like you're not watching the Brewers game every night because like you're just absolutely rapt to see what's going to happen in this bottom of the sixth inning. It's like there's casual conversation
Yeah,
and
just
banter and
hanging
bits
out.
that go from every from season to season, game to game, road trip to road trip, and like all of that stuff ladders up to something. And I think that's where there's been this faux seriousness with the tour of like all the personality has been beaten out of everything. And if it felt like, oh, you know what, it's noon on Friday, this guy always does these two guys always do the noon to 3 on PGA Tour Live, like I want to go hang out with them. And
Yes.
and it's two guys in their kind of in their bag. They have a good rapport, and like, oh, you remember this 3 weeks ago? Same things happening here right now. And there's an arc to it throughout the season instead of just every round is disconnected. And then I think I mean, Rollap's talked about it a little bit of like whether it's hard knocks or
Yeah. Sounds of
sound
the game.
effects,
Right. Yeah.
where it's like, man, like nobody's trying to get anybody canceled. It's just like literally you just want to see like details and nitty gritty and some personalities and personal interactions. And I think, like that, I feel like that's what Full Swing like positioned itself to be, and it's not that at all. Full Swing is just like the pop culture dumbed down, hey, this is to get people in the boat, which there's a place for that. I think that's
Sure.
extremely valuable. But I think that like they're not giving any like they're not serving the core audience to an extent. Or if they are, it's just like the most dry, overly produced, sanitized stuff out there.
Sponsored
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well. To your point, Rolapp did talk a lot in the Creator Classic meeting about non-event related content, like being a topic. How is the sport going to be a topic of conversation in the off season, right? Which is going to be a much bigger challenge than it will be with the NFL, again, for a lot of the reasons we discussed there. But that's a priority for him, right? Is content in and out of season, and viewing those two things differently. I'd be very curious to see kind of what the plan is there. That's one that I'm not like, hey, I've got the blueprint for you, I've got ideas here. It's like, all right, I'm genuinely curious how you drum that up, because that's one, the season doesn't really stop on the PGA Tour. The FedEx Cup season does stop, but you have the fall series and you have, all these other time periods. But he talked a lot just about content away from the event in general, right? And that's from the NFL. That's everywhere. Like getting creators IP to be able to make their own content, and just really winning in that space. The PGA Tour has taken such a hardline approach over the years, DMCAing everything that possibly comes across, and anything that's not in line with messaging. Like, how do you go about tearing that down and giving people just some entry points into the game that aren't, I need to flip on Golf Channel to see this highlight, or I need to seek this out?
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see where they end up landing on that one, because PGA Tour has evolved, and I feel like is kind of on the right path. But this guy's also got a ton of experience with very sought after highlights, like much more sought after and commercializable highlights than what the PGA Tour has. Like, I think he's going to be able to figure that one out.
I think on that note too, it's also another one of those contradictions where you can say, and I understand what he's saying. One of the great assets of the tour is that it's owned by the players, it's run by the players. Players are going to have a larger voice. So, well, the players are also the people who are going to be pissed about every single content idea you have that is
I think
within
the
that.
players are at a rude awakening on that
Right.
front.
I think
Yeah.
I think they have to be. And it's I don't even blame the players for that necessarily, because it's thinking about how some of this stuff works, it's like, man, they've just been in this world now where it's like, well, I could either practice my putting, or I could go do, what is it? How many Twinkies can I eat challenge for your TikTok? Like, yeah, I think I'll probably just keep putting, man. That gives me a better chance to win $4 million this week. And so I don't know, that finding that balance is going to be very tough for him, I think.
I think it, I think we put a lot of that onus on players. I think there's a lot of players that are cooler with doing that kind of stuff, and I think we got to put some of the onus on agents as well. Like I think a lot of the agents need to evolve too, because there's a lot of guys that won't even take it to the
Yeah.
player, right? Or
The volume of requests, though, in the last 10 years has changed so
totally.
greatly. It's hard. That's the only sympathy I have, is just like,
Well, and
it's
these
hard.
guys didn't trust the tour, and for good reason. The tour
Yeah.
wasn't like, whereas like that's you look like you use the DP World Tour, that analogy of like, well, like why do they produce such great content? Well, because the players trust
Correct.
the guys making the asks. Like those guys are studs, and they're like extremely, they have great ideas. They communicate well. They don't bait and switch the players. They don't make them look bad. It's truly like, hey, this is for your own good, and there's a level of trust there. And I think the tour, to a certain extent, breached that trust just with either bad content or bad ideas or bad execution or all of the above. Um, But I think just generally speaking on like the social side, I do feel like the tour's gotten a lot like the socials are just a lot cleaner
Yeah.
than they were 6, 12
Yeah.
months ago. Of like, it seems like they're tweeting or posting like, you know, 75% less. And it just feels like there's so much less clutter and they're just chasing dollars instead of dimes kind of thing. Of like, hey, we're trying to grow the boat. We're trying to use this as a tool to get more people into it and generate excitement instead of just trying to make 3 cents on on this decorators thing or on this, official marketing partner payoff, or this was in their contract, we have to do this, but this is the 82nd post we put out today. It's like, no, like, and I would imagine they're probably seeing like healthier engagement numbers because people I unfollowed the PGA Tour like 2 or 3 years ago on socials just because I was like, it's just taking over my feed. They're posting so much stuff that nobody knows what's important and they can't keep up. So everything just gets washed out and you turn it off, you
Yeah.
know?
I want to throw this one to either of you, whoever wants to take it. But how does all of this, everything is changing, everything's on the table, conversation? How does it affect the live of it all? The merger, they're going to come together, they're not going to come together. Either of you have any thoughts on how this affects everything?
I've got relatively simple and quick thoughts on it. It's pretty far off concern, honestly. I think the only thing that comes to mind is whether or not Rolapp represents an entirely different approach to allowing live guys to play in PGA Tour events. I'd be surprised if he did, but this is a completely different regime. I mean, it was the PGA Tour was extremely hard line in the sand. I thought that was the right decision and how to do things, and I don't think it would make a lot of sense for him to create open pathways for players to do both. Or also, would he consider the one-time amnesty option of at this specific date, you guys can all come back if you'd like. You're not going to be part of the equity programs, but here you go, blah, blah, blah date when your contracts are up and it lines up. Rom's on a different timeline, I know, but who would take that? I'm really only interested in Rom and Bryson. Like I'm somewhat interested in Kepka and in DJ and Hatton and some of the good players, but from a needle moving standpoint, Rahm and Bryson would kind of be the only ones for me of really good, marketable, competitive golfers at this moment. So it's much less of a question than it would have been 2 years ago for me. I just don't find myself longing for those guys back nearly as often as I used to. But don't think a merger's happening either way. I don't feel like it should at this point. I think PGA Tour has won the battle quite clearly, and I just want a couple of these guys back. That's pretty much it.
I think it's like be the best version of yourself and don't do stuff you know, to sate otherwise. I do think like even some of the advantages that it felt like Liv had, whether it's from a market perspective of, it seemed like they were going to carve out a foothold in Asia or in Australia. Like it seems like they're even backsliding on that front of the, I watched like the Singapore event. There's nobody there. It's no juice. The Australia event at the Grange, I don't think it's going to happen at the Grange next year. It sounds like it's going to go to another course, and like it just seems like, hey, just keep the pedal down. And the fact that the tour is actually investing in improving its own product is the best byproduct we ever could have gotten from Live, right? It's like that's the reason the reason the tour didn't want to take the phone call in the first place from Andy Gardner and the PGL guys was because they like it was just extreme arrogance and basically all the stuff that Roll has been brought in now to like they've acknowledged that by bringing in Roll by bringing in an outsider of like, hey, we like we realized why there was a vacuum, why this thing was even allowed to get off the ground.
I mentioned up front kind of that SSG war chest of money that's sitting there kind of already invested in the PGA Tour Enterprises, however all of that is kind of shaking out. Which by the way, I know we said this earlier, but like what an attractive way to hire somebody,
Yeah.
right? It's just like, hey man, not only will we give you kind of the top job, but also here's like $1.5 billion to just kind of, go try stuff, go do stuff. What should he do? Soly, what do you think he should do? What is he going to do? What are they going to do? Not just him, but I'm curious what's on your list.
Deej, gets into the part of the show that like I've felt extremely confident in everything I've said to this point as to how this product affects me as a viewer and consumer of the content. Right, I feel very invest a lot of time and thought into this. Now we're venturing into the stuff that's not my cup of tea in terms of I've not done a financial analysis of what it would look like to buy the Ryder Cup or to start buying up properties. We are entering a new period of time where the PGA Tour is a for-profit entity, and players are going to have equity in this, and I care more about how that's going to affect how decisions get made and pushed through. And again, I asked Brian about that to say, hey, there's been this period of time where the mules greatly outnumber the volume of guys that provide all the value. How do you anticipate getting things through? And he just didn't seem that concerned with that, with it now being a for-profit entity. So he probably knows some stuff I don't know on that front, how that's all going to work. All that to say, yeah, I've heard the ideas that are out there of what to do with this money and kind of becoming like a business of golf and increase the connectivity of the players to other, whether it be resorts or other golf businesses or other golf event, is the Ryder Cup or the PGA of America. Do they buy the LPGA Tour? Do they buy the DP? I don't know. I don't know the answer to all that. All that to say, like, this is going to be an entirely new arm of the PGA Tour, and I'd be curious what their mandate is from the players on this front, because undoubtedly, like the Cantlays know a lot more about kind of what's at least in the works with this or what they're thinking than I would. It's not for nothing. The money's just not to be like, we'll come up with something later. Like they've obviously thought of something. I just don't have the answer to what that might be. I've just heard the rumors.
I also don't think it's just like, well, just give it to the players.
No,
just give
it's
it.
not cash
just
for
write out
players.
checks.
Yeah.
I do think
What do you think,
something
TC?
that they're, you see it with the way that they're operating the tour and the way that they're operating tournaments, going from a host organization, whether it's, and there's some that you're always going to have, right? You're always going to have the Salesmanship Club of Dallas or the
Thunderbird.
Thunderbirds. Yeah. Or, I think, they've taken on Truist now is a championship management, or Travelers is championship management, or the one down in Palm Beach, championship management. And I think those going to for-profit tournaments, I think we'll see what happens with the charities on that front. But I do think there's an opportunity to almost treat these tournaments like you would like a franchise, like an NBA franchise, of like, hey, you know what, like what would be the most valuable franchises on the PGA Tour? Phoenix, Riviera, probably, Pebble Beach. And it's kind of like that's how I would think about like, all right, like, how do we make these venues or these experiences, these annual experiences, more lasting, right? And think about it more like a, like you would a music festival, or it's like something like con, or like the movie festival, like something that's it's a center of gravity, right? And it's like it's an experiential thing, and so you're getting more money on site, because that's how the tournaments make money, right? They, the on site, the booze and the corporate hospitality and all of that stuff. And then I think, because I think for too long the tours had both, like kind of a window in both things. Like I think they're going to use some of this money, maybe not have to use the money, they'll just do it as part of the next rights deal, is like they're just going to buy Golf Channel. They're just going to bring that in house. But I think, it depends on like what your return, like, hey, are we looking for a return in the next 5-10 years, or are we looking to make this thing extremely valuable in 30 years? How do you want, like, what's your prioritization there? But I think from the perspective of like, how to create more of those great franchises. How do you create a great franchise in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Beyond players in Bay Hill, or hey, if Tour Championship is moving around, how do you, and shit, maybe you make some sacrifices on the front end with some of that $1.5 billion. Like, you're not necessarily creating like, you're not buying something tangible, but you're using it to invest in, what, hey, we're not going to extract maximum value out of this market, for the next 5 years, because we're making an investment that we think this market's going to be extremely valuable in 15, and to get this thing off the ground, like, this is not going to be the most profitable tournament in the world right off the bat. I think there's other stuff too, of like, the tour has been very much like, hey, they've tried to mask, like, the media deal and the corporate, like, the way that they sell inventory, with like a corporation wants to sponsor a PGA Tour event. There's some corporations that do it for, marketing, for eyeballs and impressions and all of that, but I think that's the exception rather than the rule. The rule is like, no, we're getting a big ass tax write-off. We're wining and dining some of our best clients or a lot of our employees and our dealers or whatever, like whether it's John Deere or BMW or Genesis or whatever. And and our CEO really likes golf, or this is just a good touch point for us. And I think that, like, that's sometimes at odds with the actual product itself, and the TV product. And so I think there's,
Yeah.
like, I would also invest it just in, like, hey, how do we figure out maybe the FedEx Cup playoffs, maybe that's just like straight up like made for TV stuff of, hey, we're gonna have 16 dudes, and we are going to Bandon Dunes, or we're going to Nanea in Hawaii, or we're going to Chambers Bay, or we're going to, Lahinch, and it's going to be live, and it's going to be, in prime time, or it's going to be, on Saturday and Sunday morning, and like figure out how to do that. But I think that money gives you license to try some new weird shit out,
Yeah.
and make those experiences more like, and then, let's say the people that are in attendance, cool, like that is a very VIP experience that, is more like a US Amateur or a Walker Cup that you can sell to a sponsor, and it's their 600, best people, and cool, like that's worth its weight in gold. That's worth more than big ass hospitality tents, lining the 16th hole and just seeing every group come by, you know.
Yeah. What as we start to move towards landing the plane here, what do you guys think your ideal schedule looks like? I mean, I know they're talking about shaking things up. Saul, you mentioned this earlier. That's how I feel too. Is it can be almost a little daunting to imagine it because it's been so similar for so long. I know that's part of the challenge, but no restrictions, no rules, just right. TC, what what's your schedule look? You don't need to go week by week, but just kind of
Yeah.
broadly speaking.
Um, I've heard stuff that they are gonna, like, they're gonna make a concerted effort. You can scoff or laugh at this or roll your eyes, but like, to carve out time for the TGL playoffs, like, possibly move stuff around in that
Sure.
late February, early March timeframe. Um, so I
We'll be
don't
rolling
Okay.
know
my
what.
eyes just a little bit on that,
Okay.
but
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But like maybe that's building in a natural break for some of these guys to be at home. Like,
It's
I
not the
think
worst thing in
there's
the world.
I think they're I think they, like, if this TGL thing is going to be a sustainable model, I think they have to build something in either Vegas,
West
LA,
Coast.
or
Yeah.
Scottsdale. So, but like, back to like, what would you spend money on? Like, I would look at, hey, where do we have viable venues, or sustainable venues moving forward, both, just relationship wise or cost wise or whatever. And then I would look at, like, cool, like, where can we build venues? Like, where, like, what part of the country are we really light in that we could really use a new venue, and let's like spend some of that money on like building a new golf course. Not dissimilar from like what the PGA of America has done with Frisco a little bit, and you can, and I know that's privately owned, and all of that, but you could do private partnership. You can do a public private partnership. You could go to Chambers Bay and say, hey, you know what? We want to spend some of this money on building a clubhouse here for you. You guys don't have any infrastructure out here, so we can't really host anything here. We will front the money to build this clubhouse and the requisite infrastructure if we can come here at a discount for the next 10 years. Right. Or, something like that. And then that gives you, all right, cool. That's a cornerstone spot for, and shit, you build a hotel on site. Right. And then the PGA Tour is getting a percentage of the money for all on-site stays. Everybody wins. Um, I think from a schedule perspective, like, then that opens up the Pacific Northwest, right? You get to go to the Pacific Northwest summer, late, like, that's a good, all right, you got prime time, all of that stuff. Like, I tend to think the West Coast swing should be later in the year.
yep.
Should either be late spring, like, late April, early May, or it should be in July, like June, July. I think you'd start out with Australia, Hawaii, maybe a Mexico event, then come to Florida, and then you do Texas after that, or I think there's too many events in Texas. Personally. I think you need roving, and I would do more roving events too. Like I would do something that roves around, whether that's New England or just stuff that hey, there's three or four of those BMW championship style events instead of just one. And then yeah, I would do and then yeah, I think doing kind of some co-sanctioned stuff with LPGA Tour, even if it's not same place, same time, it's back-to-back weeks, and you get cost savings from being able to build infrastructure once, whether for fans or for TV. So I think schedule wise too, I feel like the PGA Championship being in May is just kind of gumming things up too. And I know that maybe you keep the players in March and you just move the PGA Championship back to August, and that frees up May to you go out to the West Coast, right?
I,
And what if you buy the PGA of America and PGA Championship, and that kind of can become your season in concluding, and it's a major. Like
I just
that's the
don't
last
think
event
that
before the
there's
playoffs.
yeah, yeah. I just don't think there's any way that I mean, A, they don't want to buy the PGA of America because they don't want the 31,000. Uh, he split off from them for a reason, right? Back in
Sure.
the day, right? But I also think that it's going to be really, really challenging that's why they're going to have to put the squeeze on them, right? From hey, we're going to make it really difficult for you guys to operate moving forward with our players, unless pay the piper, and then it's going to get less profitable for the PGA of America to run that event, and then go from there. So I think there's some dominoes that need to fall there, because I think it feels like right now. I mean, you saw it with just even who they hired, of everybody in that organization, or at least a lot of the old guard, thinks that they're just that they are like the end all be all, and they can call the shots and all of that. And I think that's pretty far from the truth, you know.
only thing I would add on the schedule front, I kind of said this after the Tour Championship, but I'll reiterate it. The straight up, man, I don't think you need the playoffs. I think
Yeah.
Atlanta is a great place to stop and should be a big time signature PGA Tour event. I think Memphis probably needs to go away. I don't know how the whole FedEx thing is going to shake out there, but I don't know that that's a great event. And BMW, I think, is an absolutely fantastic capstone to the season event that roves around, that's run very well, and that players seem to really like. That I think should be, again, an upscale signature event. And I don't, the playoffs, the continuity from event to event, I don't think is there. I don't think anybody's caring like, ooh, Scotty had a tough week in round one of the playoffs.
Yeah,
What's he
for
going to
sure.
do in round two? Nobody cares. They pretend like they care on the Wyndham, on when it gets to Wyndham, and they pretend like they care when they get to Tour Championship, but it kind of only comes down to those last couple holes, I think, at the Tour Championship, if it's close. And so I will continue beating the drum there, that like, put the BMW at the end of the season as a final seeding thing, and the Tour Championship just needs to be a big extravaganza. I think stroke play matches whittle it down until you have one champion. Don't get caught in the playoff conversation. Like, that's what's tripping everybody up, is like, well, is it a true
Yeah.
playoff? Well, if it's going to be a true playoff, it needs to have like, don't do any of that. Just say, like, if you want it to be a season long champion, we're going to have a points race that gets down to the end, and then we're going to have 1 week of playoff that is a
Yeah.
match play bracket. And
And
again,
some
it can be
years there'll
match
be
play, it can be
drama, and some
stroke.
years there's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's all I will say on. I think the schedule largely is, I can't imagine trying to put it together. It's a ton of moving pieces. TC, I'm with you. I think there shouldn't be anything off the table as far as moving the Florida swing, moving the West Coast swing, going to X, Y, and Z at different times. But I just think, as you're talking about PJ Championship, I'm like, well, it could easily move back to August if you don't have to worry about the playoffs and guys playing 9 weeks in a row, or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I think getting rid of that capital P playoffs word would free a lot up, and I would throw my full throated support behind that. But
One other schedule thing, I think they should just use I don't know what the fall series looks like post 2026, but using that as more of a, kind of like what they're starting to do with the Corn Ferry Tour, of like a incubator for ideas, right? Of hey, we're gonna do like, we just lost, like we lost our only stable for tournament on the calendar. We like I don't know. I think a cool idea for a tournament is like what you should have to you basically do like your best ball from like let's say it's a 3 round tournament and your best ball in each hole.
The ringer,
Uh
the ringer of it.
yeah, the ringer event, right? And you get like guys just playing wildly aggressively, but then also like, oh shit, I doubled this hole the first 2 days. Like
That's sick. Which again,
or
I go back to like there should be, if we're gonna really lean in on the two tours thing, it's like yeah, take some room to experiment with that.
yeah.
The on this is so silly, but I know this is the case. A big reason why this hasn't happened is because they can't come up with the nomenclature for what to call that sub tour. Because nobody will buy a sponsorship for an event that's like, no, you're on like the feeder tour. You're on the, and so it's like, oh, is it like a legends and challengers, or is it like do we call this the upstart? No, you can't call them the upstarts because it's just it's so funny to me that I know that's got to be what's holding some of this up.
I think you take the signature event series, whatever it is, and call it the championship series,
Yeah.
right? Like, and that can be, it's going to have all the majors, going to have the players, all the signature events in it. And maybe you're adding to that. Maybe we need more opposite field events to
Sure.
placate the mules and things like that. And the rest are PGA Tour events that are not championship series. Like, I think that's probably how it needs to be branded.
Which
I know
You could even do something where you roll in like, the Mule Series or the second tier PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. They play a separate schedule for a certain, time period in the year, and then the second half of that schedule or the last third of it is integrated, and you take the top 60 players from each one and they play, and you kind of you kind of intermingle those a little bit, or like 'cause, like let's say they wanted to get more of the Middle Eastern money into the ecosystem, right? With Dubai or Abu Dhabi or or Asia or any of that stuff. I don't know. It just seems like there's so much like I mean, shit. Another event that like I used to like because it moved around was the American Express. Remember that like back in the day when it went to like
the
it was at like
WGC
Capital
version, you're saying.
City.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it was like Capital City Crabapple, and then it would go to like Ireland
Ireland or
or
something.
Yeah.
yeah, like it just seems like I don't know. There's just yeah, and
I
I
don't
think that
get the sense that this new leadership means more international, TC. Like, I don't I think they're going to try to capitalize even more off of the corporate budgets of America. Like, the sports
yeah.
marketing budgets in America are bigger here. Like, I know we want to see rotation. I just don't think that's a realistic like
No,
priority for them.
I don't think that's the balance of things. Or I don't think that's where the majority of stuff is. But I do think that if they do want to get a Netflix or Apple TV or somebody like that meaningfully in the boat and at like a material value, like they do want to serve their other markets as well.
Yeah.
Of like that's it's part of the reason why like the NFL is going to Brazil or Australia or that sort of stuff. Yeah, I just don't know what you like how you interact with the DP World Tour. That's kind of the toughest part. That's like and then like collegiate golf and all of that. Do you try to integrate that stuff more into like I know they're trying that with PGA Tour U and you know the accelerated stuff and all of that. Like, do you keep going with that and really make an investment in AJGA or something like that? You know?
Yeah, it just seems like there's you can create more and more pathways with a simplified feeder system, right? If you can kind of section off like we've got this upper tier championship series, whatever it is, it's like you can have on ramps to the Corn Ferry Tour and the PJ Tour and all kinds of
Yeah.
different things. But you got to kind of figure out that top tier first, I feel like.
I think a little bit of the hey, we don't want to sponsor this second tier tour thing. I think some of that solves itself a little bit if you get the signature stuff right, where
Yeah.
if those events
And,
go to 35-40 million dollars a pop, in which they are kind of by the end of, these current cycles, because they're on these 6, 7, 8% escalators every year. I think if you do that, then it's like, all right, well, do you want to spend $40 million or you want to spend $8 million.
And the PGA Tour, even if it's a change in personnel, can make anyone spend $8 million. I don't believe. I guess I don't see that as like no one's going to want to sponsor these events. They've proven they can get people to sign up for small events at that price. Because I mean, of course, any individual is going to sit here and say $8 million is a lot of money to big companies or even medium-sized companies like RSM or whatever. Like they're spending that money easily for the RSM in the fall, and it doesn't have to make sense to us if it makes sense to them.
I also think, TC, that's almost like more of an opportunity for your franchises and identity, and like if some of those events get back to being much more of a local experiential sort of thing rather than like a bolted on part of a global media conglomerate. I think that's where there's room to have some of that identity and personality come out.
Yeah, and some of that comes back to like, you know, players will play certain events because they like the venue, or they like, hey, the food's awesome here. They treat us great. I love that hotel. You know, like stuff starts to have an identity again. It's not that dissimilar from AA baseball. You know.
Yeah. Well, guys, I feel like we covered a lot of ground here. I don't know if we could probably keep going for another 2 hours, but unless anybody else has anything top of the notebook, I'm gonna make a motion to call it there. What do you think?
I think that works. I think, it's going to be a constant topic. I don't know what we're going to need to like rethink our model if there's going to be less things to complain about on the PGA Tour. But I think that's a fair trade-off. But, I think we're going to continue to have conversations with people here as to what all that looks like and try to keep our audiences, apprised of any developments as we see fit through on a week-to-week and month-to-month basis. Cause a lot of stuff's going to shake out. You might not see it for a while, but stuff's already in action.
Yeah.
One other question for you guys on the new schedule, 2026. What was the biggest surprise for you? Or biggest surprise, concern, success even?
I guess that stretch there with the 5 signature events and majors in a 6-week stretch was a surprise, and a sponsorless signature event on DT's course was, not really a surprise. We knew that was coming, but that's just kind of like okay, well, signature event model must be considered to be a success if we're adding to it. But it's also like, man, this was always the schedule was going to look like this for 2026. And I don't have any big takeaways other than this is probably the last time it's going to look like this. We've said that before though, and been proven wrong. So we'll see, but I don't know. I don't think I don't hate the current schedule as it stands now. Honestly, we kind of had a question in here we didn't really get to, of just like, what would a dream schedule look like? And it's just not that far off. As much as we talk about it, it's not, for me, it's not that far off. But that's a topic for a different day.
Steve, what about you?
Yeah, same. I think the sponsor list thing is super interesting, but I think maybe if I'm trying to connect the dots, like an example of using the war chest to just create the product that you want to create. And it seems like if they're trying to add more of those events, like I don't think that, I think it signals that they like how it's going.
All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thanks everyone for tuning into the different pieces of this, and we have an interview coming out later this week. Big Randy talk with Michael Bamberger. I think people are going to enjoy that. And then next weekend's episode, this crew right here that you're listening to is going out to the Walker Cup at Cypress Point. We're going to record a recap of that on Sunday night as well, and NFL is going to be back at that point as well. So, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you back here next week. Cheers.